In today's video, I'll be showing you how you are going to be connecting your Airflow to Reddit instance on the cloud. We are going to create an application on Reddit, get our secret and access key, and also use this key in our Airflow. The Airflow we are going to be setting up is backed by Celery Backend and Postgres. Once we have this data in our Airflow system, we are going to push this data to S3 bucket. And from there, we're going to connect our AWS Glue into this data, and we're going to perform some manipulations on this data. Once that is done, we're going to move over to Athena for querying and visualization, and also we're going to go over to Redshift data warehouse. We're going to set up our very first data warehouse on AWS and how to load data into this data warehouse, connecting to several technologies and several instances on AWS, something like data catalog, or even if we want to set up our own fresh database on the data warehouse. I'm going to show you how you're going to load data in real time on the data warehouse, and from there you can take it further to connect other visualization technologies that you want to use, like Power BI, Tableau, Looker, or QuickSight. We're also going to show you how you can use some chatting mechanisms that are on the data warehouse for visualization of the data you have on data warehouse. So stay with me on this journey and let's get started. I'm going to start by creating a new project called Reddit Data Engineering. And I'll click on create project. So the VENV is set up on our local system, and then I'll open up my terminal. The tip of the day, I'll close that. Thank you. And then the terminal, I'm going to install the required packages. I'm going to start by installing Airflow, pip install Apache Airflow. I'm going to be installing pandas because I'll be needing pandas. I'll be needing NumPy, which technically usually comes in with pandas. After that, I'm going to be using the Pro package to do the installation for Pro, and I'll start with this one for now. Then we continue from there by the time we have a need for a new package. All right. While this is going on, we're going to start by creating some folders and files to get our system started. I'm going to create make directory. I'm going to create all these folders, and to talk through them, we have the config where we're going to be having our settings and configurations. We also have a DAG for the basic Airflow workflow automation. We have our data to store our data, and the ETLs for the extract, transform, and load. We have the log for storing the logs, the pipeline. We have the test and the utils. Okay, and then I'm going to touch Docker Compose. We need the env. We need the Docker Compose .yaml as well as Docker file. So after creating our Docker Compose and Docker file, the next thing we want to do is fill them up with the right data. So I'm going to go into my Docker Compose and I'll do a copy paste into that, so I can have my Airflow in here. So I'm going to have the services as usual. We have the Postgres in here. We have the Redis. Then we have the initialization command. What this means is by the time the Airflow is starting up, it's going to start with the init command. And from there, other services are going to inherit the same property from there and initialize the services. So I'm going to have the init command, the web server, the scheduler, and the worker all inheriting from Airflow common. And if you look at the Airflow command in here, it's building from the Docker file, which we have already, but we haven't written anything inside that. And we have an env file that is going to be used. So the rest is just mapping. And if you noticed, I commented this guy because initially, if you don't have this file in the root directory, it's going to create it as a folder and map it into the container. We don't want that. That's why I've commented it out. So, but if you want, by the time your system starts up, you can uncomment it because you're going to have one-to-one mapping as at that time. But for now, we're going to leave it at that. So continuing, I'm going to go into the Docker file and write the steps in there. So I'm just going to copy and paste in there I'm going to have this, and then in my env file, I'll just copy paste also in there, then I'll talk through them. Okay, so in the Docker file, what's happening is this. We says pull this image from Airflow 2.71 3.9 version and copy the requirements.txt from there into our opt Airflow. We have our user root, so we switch to the root user so we can run this command. And once this is run, we switch back to Airflow user and we can do the installation. Okay, so what is happening is in our requirements.txt, we just do a pip freeze into the requirement.txt, because don't forget we've already done the installation in a different tab in here. So what this is going to do for us is install the package and build an image for us. The image that is going to be built is called custom airflow 2.71 3.9, and then the env that is going to be used is this. So we are using the Celery executor, and we have a broker of Redis, and in here this is going to be connecting to the Redis backend, Celery backend into with Postgres, and the same thing, this is going to be connecting Airflow into Postgres. This is the secret key, and we have the login level of info, and then we are not loading any examples. So the next thing we want to do is test if our services are up and running. So we just do docker compose up detached, and then we build. So if this is the first time, you may not have the build flag, but if you've been creating something like that, so your changes can reflect, you might need to rebuild. So right now, everything is created, and then it's starting up. Okay, so let's see if our services are up and running before we continue. So they are going down, and simply because of what? So let's see what is happening. So the initialization command is still running, and it's still running the steps, creating each of the services, and it says get pass. I'll just leave that and then do a restart. Okay, and let's see if this time everything is fine. I only did a restart of the services. Okay, and let's see what is going on. We have our web server, which is coming up, and the web server is starting up, creating the services and the rest, and it looks like everything is okay and fine. So now our scheduler, let's see, our scheduler is also getting started. Excellent. And our worker, the Celery worker, also is ready. Excellent. So this means our worker service and the architecture we set up is ready to accept connection, and we can start writing our DAGs and the pipelines and the ETLs. So I'm going to switch over to the coding section, and we continue from there. So now that our services are up and running, we just come in here in the config file and the DAG. I'm just going to go into the DAG and create a new Python file. I'll call that Redis DAG. Redis DAG. Okay. And in my Redis DAG, I'm going to have the import of import DAG. I'm going to be from Airflow. I'm going to be importing DAG, and I'm going to be importing date time. Importing date time from date time. I'll import OS, import sys. If you're a regular follower of this channel, you will know that if you are running Docker and you're running Airflow on your Docker instance, by the time you start your DAG and you don't have an insertion into the root directory to reflect the root directory, you're going to have an error. So that is a common and known error. So I'm going to just fix that error beforehand, so we just don't waste too much time on that. So we want to say any command that is running, we're going to be running from the root directory. So I'm going to have sys.path.insert into the 0th index, and we get the absolute path of the current file. Then from there we derive underscore, and from there we get the directory name of the current path, and then we move one step further up, so we get the absolute path of the current file, we get the directory name, which is this DAG, then we get the directory name of that DAG, which is the Reddit data engineering. Okay, the next thing we want to do is we are going to have a default argument. Default args is going to be, we're going to have owner, which is going to be Yusuf Ganil. We have start date, it's going to be date time 2023 10 and 22, and the file postfix, which is what we are going to be needing. That's going to be the format that we're going to be appending our files with. I'm going to just put that date time dot now, and then I'm going to do an strf time, and we can have percentage year, percentage month, percentage day. Okay, then the next thing we want to do, I'll show you how we are going to be using this in a short time. Just hold on. We have a DAG, which is going to be the basic DAG of DAG ID. I'm going to have our DAG ID as ETL Reddit called pipeline. We have our default argument as default args. We're going to be scheduling that. Schedule interval is going to be daily. Then we don't need to catch up, so it's fine. I'm going to come out that. Catch up is going to be false. The start date is going to be, we don't need the start date because we already have a start date in here, so it's fine. And then I can have, if I want, tags, and maybe we can have Reddit, and then I'll call this ETL and maybe pipeline if we want. This is optional. You can decide to have it or not, so it's okay. So the next thing we want to do, have our first DAG. So inside our first DAG, the first one we want to do is the extraction from Reddit. Then the next one we're going to be doing is the upload to S3. So for the extraction, we're going to have extract and a Python operator, which is going to have a task ID of Reddit extraction. Then I'm going to have a Python callable of, I'll call it Reddit pipeline because that's what we're going to be using anyways. Then op quarks, which is the parameters we're going to be passing into that. We're going to have a file name, and the file name is going to be in the format of Reddit underscore file postfix. So it says Reddit underscore year, month, and day. Makes sense? Then the next one, we have a subreddit, which we are going to be setting up shortly. Subreddit, we call it data engineering. It could be any subreddit that you want. Then we have a time filter of day. So we want to get just a single day or multiple days. And then we have a limit of 100. So we want to fetch 100 subreddits, 100 posts in a subreddit for a particular day. So let's import the required dependencies. So I'm importing the Python operator, and then let's create our pipeline. So our pipeline, if we go into the Reddit pipeline, so what is happening is in our pipeline in here, I'm going to create a Python. I'll call it Reddit pipeline. Okay. And I can have a function called Reddit pipeline, which is taking all of these parameters. So I'm going to have a file name of a string. We have a subreddit, which is a string also. we have a time filter. Filter is the by default day, so it's also a string. Then we have a limit of by default none. Okay. Now each of this is going to be, we are going to be returning a particular instance of Reddit in here. So what is going to happen is, let's see. So after creating this, the next thing we want to do is have our instance. So we're going to be doing 4 things in here. We're going to be connecting to Reddit instance, and we're going to be doing extraction. This is our pipeline. Okay, we're going to be doing some transformation, and then we're going to be doing the loading to CSV. These are the steps we're going to be taking. So the first one, let's start with that. We're going to have instance, which is going to be the connection to Reddit. So we call it connect to Reddit. And this is going to be needing the client ID, which you don't have right now. We're going to be using the secret, and then we are going to be using a Scholar agent. Okay, so let's create the connect to Reddit because we don't have it right now, and these are the constants and dependencies we're going to be using. So inside the utils, I'm going to start with the constants. In here, I'm going to create a file called constants, and in my config, because these are the secret configs that we're going to be using, I'm going to have a file. I'll call it conf dot maybe config.conf. It's supposed to be config, right? Config.conf. Okay. Now in my config, what I want to do basically is I'll just copy paste that. So I have a database section. I have a file path section, the API keys for Reddit, and AWS ETL settings. For now, we leave it at this. Basically, for the database, we have the local host. I call the database name, not Reddit scraper, is Reddit. If you look at the Docker Compose, we have in our command in here for Postgres, you have Airflow Reddit. Okay, so we are going to be using the same database name in there. We have a port Postgres, and the password is also Postgres. The file path, we have, this is going to be the input inside the data section and the output. So we need to create 2 folders in here. We have the input and we have output. Okay. Aside from that, we have the API key coming from the Reddit. If you followed the initialization that we did earlier, you will see how you can get your Reddit secret key and the client key. So those are the 2 things you need from Reddit, and you put them in here. Aside from that, we have the AWS key ID, which I'm going to show you how to get shortly. But for now, don't worry about it. We need these 5 things in there. And we have the key ID, the secret key, the session token, the region, and then the AWS bucket name. So I'm going to change this, but for now, let's leave it at that. We have the ETL settings, maybe batch size, error handling, log level. We are not using this for now, but let's leave it at that. Okay, now that we have all of this, we need to have a constant that is going to fetch this from us. So we are going to be installing a package called config parser. I'm going to be installing config parser and adding that into my requirements or txt. Then I can do docker compose up the build. So this is going to rebuild the image and then rerun the packages. So basically, if you come back in here into my constants, I'm going to just import config parser, and from the config parser, I'm going to map each of these items and entries we have in our config file into the constant. So we can have import config parser and then import os So I'm gonna do a parser. It's going to be config parser.config parser, the initialization. Then I'm going to specify the source of the config file, which is the parser.read os.path.join. We're joining the directory name of the current file, just like we did before, with the one step forward into the config section, and we can get the config.conf. So what this is meaning is that we're inside the constant directory, so we get the directory name of the current file, which is the utils, and then we are joining that with one step up. So the dot is going to go into the root directory, go into the config, and fetch the config.conf. So we can get our secret. The secret is going to be parser.get. Under the API key section, if you look at the API key section, that's our secret, where our secret is. We have our API keys, and we have Reddit secret key. We have a client ID, which is the parser.get under the API keys, and then we have Reddit client ID. We have our database host, parser.get database. We have database host. Just copy that and then replicate this multiple times. We have the host, we have the database name, we have the port, we have the user, we have the password. And I'm going to database underscore password. And in here, I'm going to change this to name, port, username, and then password. Then the rest is to get the AWS and the input. So we need the input path. It's going to be parser.get. We have a file path and the input path. Then the output path is going to be parser.get. We have the file paths and the output path. So right now we've taken care of the API keys, the file path. So we need to take care of the AWS. But for now, we just leave it at that. Let's continue. Now, once this is done, we go back into our Reddit pipeline and import our client secret and the client ID. Okay, so we need our connect Reddit. So let's go into our ETL and create our connect Reddit. That's where we are doing the extract, transform, and the loading. So I'm going to create a Python file and I'll call it Reddit ETL. And in my Reddit ETL, I'm going to have a function called connect Reddit. And this is going to be taking 3 parameters, isn't it? We have the client ID, secret, and the agent. Client ID, client secret, and then user agent. And what this is going to be returning for us is the Reddit instance. So that is coming from, if you just do an import in here, we can just import that from pro.reddit, and then we can have a try catch to establish a connection. We have a Reddit, it's going to be pro.reddit, and then we have our client ID, it's going to be client ID. We have client secret, it's going to be client client secret. And then lastly, we have a user agent. It's going to be user agent. So I'm just going to import crawl. Now, this is going to get our initialization done, and we can have our print connected to Reddit. And then we can return Reddit, and for the exception, we are going to undo that except exception as E. So we just do a print of the error, and then we do a sys.exit. Simply because if we are not able to connect to Reddit, there's no point in continuing. We just end the session in the import sys. Okay. So our connection to Reddit is done. So, but we need to be able to do the extraction also. So if I come back into my pipeline in here, I have a connect Reddit that I can use. And let me just import that. And I have a connect Reddit instance. Under the extraction, I'm going to have my post. It's going to be extract post. I'm going to have an instance that I'm going to be passing into that. I'm going to be passing the subreddit and the time filter as well as the limit. Okay. And I'll just come back into my ETL and create another function called extract post. So this is going to be having Reddit instance, which is of Reddit instance. We have a subreddit of a string, the time filter of a string, and the limit, I'll default it to none. So what this is going to do for us, we just need to get the subreddit from the Reddit instance, which is the subreddit, and we have the subreddit. Then we get the post. It's going to be subreddit dot top time filter. It's going to be time filter. Then the limit is going to be limit. The next thing, this is going to extract a list of posts for us, which is an array. So we just need to have our post list as an array in here. And then for each of the posts, we just format them. For each of the posts inside the posts, okay, we have, in fact, before I continue, let's see how the post looks like. Just do print posts, okay. I'll just comment this also. And then going back into the pipeline, I have my extract post in here, which I'm importing from there. And in my DAG, I have ready pipeline. I just need to import that from pipelines, ready to ready pipeline. Okay. And yeah, I think we can take this for a spin. Should we take it for a spin? I think we should. Let's see if it is working or not. Once the services are running, the next thing you need to do is go into the UI and test it out. So we just refresh this and let's see. Okay, and then we can have our Airflow, and then the password is Airflow. And let's sign in. Invalid login. Let's see, in our Docker Compose, when we were setting it up, we have the username is admin, not Airflow, and the password is admin. Do we have a password? No. So I think that is missing. Admin. No. So what we need to do basically is go into the web server and create a new user. But basically what is missing from here is to add a password, and I'll put that as admin. Okay. So I don't want to rebuild the image, so I'll just quickly go into the image. I can do docker exec IT, and I'll get the worker master name, not worker, or the master is the web server. I'll get the web server name and I'll paste it in here, and it's going to be bin bash. There's an additional stuff in here. So after putting the container name, I'm going to have the bin bash, and I can run that. Now I'm in the Airflow directory, and I can do Airflow users. I'll just copy this. I'll just copy this and paste it there. And then it says user admin with role admin created. Good. So the next time we rebuild this image, we have our username and password already set. So that was missing from there. So I'm going to have an admin as a password. And we're able to log in. So there's an error when it tries to set up. It says no module name pipeline. This is the same error that I was talking about the other time. And if you come into the pipeline, into the DAG, you can see our sys is below the pipelines import. So I just need to move this up just one step ahead, and that fixed the error. So we just wait a few seconds for the synchronization between our local system and Docker to be complete. And I just need to do a refresh. Just do a refresh in here. And the error is gone. Now our ETL, our pipeline is ready to be run. And we can just enable this. Right now, we don't have none of the operators and stuff are working in here. So the only thing that is missing in here is after the extraction, we need to call, we didn't add a DAG to this. DAG is going to be DAG. So that was what was missing in there actually. So it wasn't attaching to this particular DAG. So this operator, the extract operator, wasn't, the Python operator for the extract is not connected to our Reddit pipeline, and you can see we have our Reddit extraction now. Good. So once this is done, we can just simply run this and see what the output looks like. If you come to the graph, and let's see. And if you click on this, I'll click on this guy, and you can see the logs. And in the logs, you will see that we have connected to the Reddit, and this is returning a list generator from us. So we need to be able to get all of the data and put them somewhere, because we can view the content of the listing generator in there. So we just come back to our pipeline in here at Reddit, and instead of printing the post, we just iterate through that and append them to the list. So I just do get the post dictionary and put them in vars of post. So what that means is I can just do a key mapping of the key of the post dict, and I'll extract the key from there for the key in post fields, which we haven't specified yet. So let's specify that. Our post fields are going to be, I think I can just print this before we continue. I'll just do a print. I'll just do a print in here, and the print is going to be post dictionary, and so we can extract the post fields shortly. And let's rerun this. So there's an error in here. So it says it's trying to redirect into subreddits that search. So let's go back in there and see what error is that. And in my DAG, I have data engineering. So this is where the error is coming from. And that was wrong. So it's data engineering. All right. I'll just save that again and rerun this. Just do a refresh and run this again. And let's see what output we have. And you can see we have something like this. I'll just copy this entire line. This one, I'll just copy this entire line, and we can use that to model our post titles. So I'll just move this, and it looks like this. Approved subreddit, and we have a self text. What else? Yeah, so these are the mappings that we have. So I'll just create a constants for that, and in my constants in here, I'll call them post fields. Okay, and that would be a tuple of ID, title. I have a score. I have a number of comments. I have the author. I have created UTC. I have the URL. I have the upvote ratio. I have over 18. I have edited over 18. I have edited. I have spoiler. I have stickied. And let's see what else we have. I think there is one other thing that is of interest to me in here. If you look at this, I'll just yeah, I think the self-text also might be something interesting, really. And maybe I'll just add maybe text to that. And in my pipeline, in my ETL, once I have the Reddit, so it's going to map. I'm just going to map each of these keys in my post fields that I just created, and it's going to map the key into a post dictionary that I have in here, and that's going to be my key. Okay, so I'm going to have, so let's say I have a comment limit, for instance. It's going to be comment limit, and it's going to extract the post dictionary. It's going to extract the comment limit from the post dictionary and map it into that. So the content of the post dictionary will be mapped to the key. So I'll just continue, and that gives me my post, and I'll just append post list. I'll just append post to that. And then I'll return post list. Yeah, so basically I get the post list in a formatted array, and I can easily transform this data. If I come back into my pipeline, once I've done the extraction, I can convert this into a data frame. So I can easily work with that with pandas. I have a postdf. It's going to be pd.data frame, and basically I need to import pandas as pd. So I convert that to data frame, and I have my post. Then I need to pass this to transform it. So I'm going to have transform data and pass in my post data frame. So inside my ETL again, I come back in here and I have transform data, and I'm getting a data frame in this instance. Let's see if all of these have been I think I'll just I'll just return post df. So let's stick to those ones for now. And we have load data to CSV. We have data. The pd data is pd.data frame, and we can have a path where we want to store them. The path is going to be a string, and I can have data.toCSV into my path, and I don't need any index. Index equals to false. Okay, so in my pipeline, I'll just do, once I've done the transformation, I'll just load the data to CSV. I'll just import this guy, import from Reddit ETL. And once I do that, I'll just say load data to CSV. I'll get my post df in there, and I'll say my output is, I think is output directory. Is it? In my constants, what do I have? Is output path, not output directory. Output path. Okay. And I'll import this from ETL. Okay, and let's import our output path from constants. And there we can run this and see how the output looks like by the time we finish this. I'll just rerun this. Okay, there's an error, and it says there is a key error text. So there's a text key in there that is causing an error. So let's see what the key looks like. In our constants, we have a text, and it's not a text, is it? Let's see what the text look like. If we check this Reddit extraction, each of this, I'll just drag this, and it's self text, not text. I'll just save that and rerun this. I'll just rerun this. Another error. it says opt output is a directory. Of course it is. So we're supposed to write, okay, we're supposed to write the data into CSV, not the folder. So I'm going to just adjust this a little bit. I'm going to have file name .csv. Okay. And that will be our path. And for us to return the path, I think I can just move this file path. It's going to be that, and I can put the file path in here and return the file path. Okay. And everything should be fine if I run this now. All right, so it's a success. And the return value was this, and you can see we have 2023, 1022. And if I come back in here, I have in my output directory, I have my CSV sitting there nicely. So let's see how the CSV looks like. So this is how the CSV looks like. And I'll just put this as the first row is the header. I'll just minimize this. And you can see we still need to have some adjustments in here. Let's convert this. We just so the date that this was edited, I think, is this 167 something there. All right. So let's go back into PyCharm and do some more transformations. Then find a final format before we proceed to AWS. So we have our output path in here in my Reddit pipeline, and we can just go back into the ETL. So I have my author as a string, and I'm going to use a different method to adjust the edited section. I'm going to have a post data frame. I'm going to say edited, and it's going to be mode. We have our post df edited is going to be np.where post data frame of edited is in true or false. Okay. What I want to do when it is true or false, I want to say that the edited is going to be replaced by edited mode. Otherwise, edited mode, and I'm going to convert that to type of Boolean. The first part is basically done, where we have our data pulled in from Reddit, transformed and cleaned, and then saved into a CSV. All right. So now we are going to be moving over to the AWS section. Before we do that, we just need to rerun this and see if everything is working as expected. Then we move on. All right. I'll just do a refresh and I'll run this again. Okay. So let's see what is happening in here. So the return value is this. Now we have our path, and let's see how the data eventually looks like. Okay, so we have the data in here, and it looks like the numbers are gone, and you can see we have the data in there as clean as possible. And yeah, I think everything is fine. We just need to continue over to the AWS. Now, if you're using Mac, the next thing you want to do, if you don't have it before, you want to do brew install AWS CLI so you can run the AWS commands on your local system. And also have a key directly saved into your local system. So it's easy for you to, I've already done this, so I'm not going to be doing that again. So the next thing I want to do is go back into my constants and fix those AWS constants that we haven't added to the system. So we just do that inside the in here before the input path, and I'll call this AWS. And I'm going to have AWS access key ID, which is going to be gotten from parser get AWS. We have AWS access key ID. Then we have, I'm just going to copy that. We have the access key, which is going to be access key. Then we have AWS region. I'll just put that in here, AWS region. And that would be AWS region. And I have a bucket name, AWS bucket name. And we just move that to AWS bucket name. This is our S3 bucket name, by the way. So now let's switch over to AWS. Okay, I'm going to just go into the console. Once you log in into your console, I'm going to go straight into our S3. And in my S3 bucket, I'm going to create a new bucket, and I'll call that Scholar Reddit engineering. And I'm just going to leave it as US East, and ACL is disabled. I'm not going to be blocking all public access. I'll just leave it at that. I acknowledge. And bucket versioning is okay. Bucket key, and I'll create a bucket. Instead of underscore, it's supposed to be a dash. And right now I have my bucket. So inside my bucket, by the time I want to upload data into there, I'll just come here and copy that. And in my config, I'll just change the bucket name to Scholar Reddit. Same US East is the same. And we just now, once we have that, we just need to do a basic upload of our data inside the CSV, and then we can do a cleanup afterwards if we want. It's not necessary, so we just go back in here in our DAG. Once we've done the extraction, we just do our upload in here. So we can say upload S3, where we can have Python operator, and we are going to have a task ID, and I'll just call this S3 upload. The Python callable is going to be upload S3 pipeline. Let's say it's a pipeline. Okay, we just need to create, and the DAG for this is the DAG. So we just need to create inside this guy, we just need to create a pipeline for that, and we call this AWS S3 pipeline. And in our S3 pipeline, we can have dev upload S3 pipeline. We're going to get the task ID from there that is going to be passed in. Okay, and we're going to have the file name being fetched from And if you could recall, by the time we finished running this guy, we had a return of this value. And if you check our XCOM pool in here, in our XCOMs, you'll see that we have a return value of this same value from this task ID Reddit extraction. Okay, so we can come back into the DAG. Yeah, there's an error, so it's fine. We fixed that. So we can come here into our ti.xcom pool from there, and the task ID is going to be no, not task ID is going to be Reddit. If you check the XCOM pool again, we have Reddit extraction and Reddit underscore extraction. The key is the return value, is it not? Yeah, that's the key, return value. And once that is done, we can have our S3 pipeline. We have a file name. Well, I don't think we don't need to create a new function for that. I can have my S3 is going to be connect to S3, and then we create a bucket if it doesn't exist, if not exist, with this, and we pass in the bucket name, the bucket, which is the AWS bucket name, and then we upload to S3. We have our S3 instance, we have a file path, we have a bucket, we have a okay, we need a particular key in here, which is the last guy. We have file path, which is the, I think just change this to file path, the split, and I'm gonna have -1. Okay, so I just want to get the last name, the last file name, .csv. That's what I'm doing in here. And so let's fix this in our ETL. So I'm going to have another ETL in here, and I'll call it, I'll say AWS ETL. So I'm going to have, I'm going to be creating a function called connect to S3. And in here, I'm going to be using a package called S3FS. So I'm going to have S3 going to be S3FS, which we don't have right now. It's going to be S3 file system. The anonymous is going to be false. The key is going to be AWS access key ID. And the secret key is going to be AWS secret key. And we can just return our S3 instance. But if there's an error, exception as E, we just print E. So what we need to do is install S3FS. Once that is installed, we just import these guys from our constants. So import, yeah, I'm just going to say from utils.constants import AWS access key ID and AWS. I'll just copy this and paste in here, and the secret key I'll copy from here and I'll paste it here. Then I'm going to be importing S3FS, import S3FS. So I'm going to do pip freeze into requirements.txt, and let's see our constants. Why is this returning an error? AWS access key, isn't it? It's not secret key, it's access key. Okay, good. So now we are able to potentially connect to S3 with this. Then the next one that we have is, let's import this. The bucket name, import that. And let's create a bucket if not exists. So I'll just come in here and say dev, create bucket if it doesn't exist. And I'm going to have s3fs dot s3 file system, then the bucket name that I want to check for. I can have a try catch in here which says if not s3.exists, the bucket. I'm going to make s3.make directory and I'm going to create the bucket. Then I'll say the bucket created. But if it exists, else, we just say print bucket already exists. All right. Then we have an exception, which is exception as E. Then we print E. And yeah, that's that. The next one is the last one, which is the upload to, we have upload to S3. I'm just going to copy the S3 file system and the bucket string. We have the file name, which is the file path, actually not the file name. Then we have the S3 file name as a string. So I'll do a try catch. So I just do s3.put the file path, the bucket, and I'll say plus raw s3 file name, and I'll just say print file uploaded to S3. So if it wasn't except file not found error, I'll say print file, the file was not found. Okay, so these are the functions. So to just go through them, we have so once you connect to the S3, check if the bucket exists or not. If it doesn't exist, create the bucket. If it exists, continue, and then upload data into the S3 bucket. So we just say this is the file path that you want to pick from, and this is the destination file that you're putting to. And if it's successful, we say file uploaded successfully, and if not, file was not found. So the next thing we want to do is import all of this from our function ETL, and import this also. The bucket name is AWS bucket name, and that fixed it. So this is our pipeline to upload data into S3. So we just go back to our ETL, into our DAG rather. I'll just have our DAG in here and I'll import this. So the only thing we just need to do is upload S3 pipeline. Upload S3. And it should be good. All things being equal. So let's go to our DAGs and do a refresh. So there's an error in here. It says no module name pipelines inside our ready DAG. For some reason, the arrangement has changed again. I think it's because of the auto formatting that I did. So we should be good this time around. I'll just do a refresh and a page refresh in here. Anything else? no module name S3FS. So we just pip freeze into this. We've not rebuilt our image. So I'll just do docker compose up detached and I'll rebuild this. Don't forget to add the dash dash build because we've changed the requirements.txt and it needs to re-update the dependencies. Now that the services are up and running, we just need to take them for a spin, can't we? Let's do that. We'll go to the UI and do a refresh. Okay, it looks like we've been signed out. We just need to sign in again. The username is admin and the password is admin. Okay, there's an error with the DAG. And what's the error? It says no option AWS access key in section AWS. So let's fix that. In our Airflow utils.constants, we are trying to get AWS access key. And if we go back to our constants, the constants, we have access key, which is AWS access key. And in our config, what do we have? We have AWS access key ID and secret access key. And we have AWS access key ID, and the other one is AWS secret access key. And that should fix that for us. All we have to do now is to go back to the UI and do a refresh, and the error should be gone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do a Docker compose down so I can remove all of the containers, and then I'll do a Docker compose up to start them again, and that should fix our issues. Okay, and then Docker compose up detached. I think the first time the initialization is going to be done, and we just need to start it again. So let's check on the UI. If I click on this, and yes, we just need to sign in, admin, and we can click on the ETL pipeline, and we just need to enable this. So we just unpause it. Is there any triggers? Nope. So we just start. So let's see if this is going to run the process and put the data on S3 bucket. So the extraction is done, and it looks like the S3 is done too. So if we look at what we have in here, AWS. So I was using AWS secret key before. It's supposed to be AWS secret access key. That was an error on my part. But right now it's corrected and we can go on the UI. So this is our Reddit engineering. I just refreshed and we have a raw folder created for us. And then inside this, we have this, and it was created just a few seconds ago. All right, so if we want to get this on the S3 bucket, this is how to do it. Now we are able to push data to that. The next thing we want to do, we have the data in the raw format right now. We need to go into our glue and perform the transformation that we are looking for. Even though we're able to save data into our AWS, I'm going to still remove this self text, and maybe we have some other columns that we don't need, something like the upvote to ratio. We don't need it also. So no need to do that. And in the extraction level, when I'm doing the extraction in the Reddit, I'm going to just remove that from the post field. I remove the self text. I remove the upvote ratio. And maybe we can also remove over 18. Maybe we leave that. I think we can leave that. And we just need to rerun that. on the UI. I'll just do a refresh and rerun. Okay, so it's rerunning. So I think that is done. And it's uploading, and the upload is done. And if we do a refresh, we should see the latest data in there. Good. So now we can go into our Glue and let's see how the data looks like before we continue. So this is how the data look like. We have the title, score, comments, author, created, and this. Okay, good. So with this, I think we can proceed. Okay, now we can go into our Glue. I'm going to search for Glue in there and select that, open in a new tab. And in our Glue section, this is the new UI anyways. And we go into the ETL jobs where we are going to be creating our ETL. So I'm going to be using the visual ETL in this case. And we are going to have the Amazon as the source, no transformation. And in the target, we are going to select Amazon as a target. Good. And in the source, I click on the source, click on the browse, click on data, Reddit, engineering. I'll click on the raw and I click on the CSV file. I don't need that. Then in first schema, then we have a CSV, comma separated and double quotes. Good. So in the destination schema, we're going to have the parent node as the S3 bucket. Then the final output is going to be a CSV output. You can use any other format, or if you like, you can use Parquet format and use something like Snappy or gzip for the compression. Doesn't really matter which one you use. The same data can be, gotten anytime at any point. So in the target location, I'm going to browse, going to Ready Data Engineering, and in our raw, I think we need to have another bucket folder. I'm going to have transformed data, and I'm going to have a create. Now, oh no, not here. I should be able to move this just one step above. Browse into data Reddit and choose destination and move. Okay. And if you go back into Ready Data Engineering, you should see raw and transform. Excellent. So in our visual editor, I'm going to refresh this and select the transformed as my destination. The destination format is CSV also, no compression, and I'm not updating the catalog. Good. And this should be validated, shouldn't it? Yeah, I think it's okay. I will just continue. Then in the job details, I'm going to have the name of the job. I'll say Reddit Glue job. And in the advanced properties for the script file name, it's going to be Reddit Glue job. Good. And in the script section, I want to have a little transformation. The transformation is that in the last three columns, we have the edited, sticky, and one other column. I want to merge these three columns into a single column, so we don't have too many columns in the database, in the CSV anyways. So that's what I want to do. So let's proceed and do that. So I'm going to edit this, but a couple of warning in here. Once you select the script, you can't go back to the visual mode anymore. So you have to be sure that you are done with the visual script before proceeding to the script section. Okay. So I'll click on confirm, and I'm going to be importing from the script. I'm going to have convert dynamic frame to data frame, and we're going to have df. I'm just going to select S3 bucket here, dot to df, and I'm going to concatenate the 3 columns into a single column. And how do I do that? I have df combined df dot with column, okay, and the column is going to be ess updated, and I'm going to be concatenating them with concat underscore ws from the PySpark SQL function. I'm concatenating them on dash, and I'm going to have df edited and df spoiler, and the last one df sticked. Those are the 3 columns that I'm been merging, and once that is done, I just need to convert back to dynamic frame. So how do I do that? I'm going to have something like S3 bucket node combined, and that's going to be dynamic frame dot from data frame of df combined glue context and the name of the node. Okay, and from there I'll just rename this to that, and I'll import the functions, and from pyspark.sql.functions import concat ws. Then the last one, from AWS Glue import dynamic frame. Those are the imports, the dynamic frame and the concat ws. Okay, I continue S3 CSV and skilled. Before I continue, I'm going to drop these 3 columns. So I'm going to have df combined. It's going to be df combined dot drop, and I'm going to be dropping these 3 columns: edited, spoiler, and sticked inside a different spoiler and sticked. Okay, I'm going to be dropping them. All right, and if I just save this and I run, and let's go to the run section and see if our jobs will be running now. All right, the job is done running, and let's see if the data is saved in our bucket. So if I go into the transformed folder, and you can see the data in here. Good. So now we are done with the glue. Now let's create a crawler. The crawler is going to create a database, potentially a database, and tables for us. So what that is going to do is going to convert the data inside our CSV and convert it to a table for us. Okay, so right now we don't have a crawler. I'm going to select and create a new crawler. I'm going to call it Reddit crawler. I'm going to go into next. The data is not mapped to any glue tables yet, so I'm going to add a data source, and I'm going to select browse, and that's going to be ready data engineering into transformed, and I'm selecting this. Okay, it's a path. We should select a path. So I'm going to select ready data engineering and select a transform path. So I'm going to add S3 data source, and then if you have a custom classifier, you can add a new classifier in here. But right now we don't have one. We'll see if we are going to need one. So I'm going to create a new IAM role, and I'm going to call it Reddit Glue role. I'm going to create, and it's successfully created, and I can click on next. So I'm going to select the database to be used. Because we don't have any database to be using here, I'm going to add a new database, and I'll select Reddit DB. I'll just type it in there, and I'll create. Now we have a Reddit DB created, and I'll refresh this and select Reddit DB from the drop down. No table prefix. If you have something like this, or you have any prefix you want to add, you can add it inside here. And if you have any other maximum number of tables you want to put in there, you can do that. But on demand is going to be the frequency, and I'm going to continue, and then create crawler. So once that is done, I can either run the crawler here or run it here. So I just clicked on that, and it's going to start my crawler for me. All right, so the crawler is starting. Bon voyage. Okay, the job is done. And right now, if you refresh, you will see that in here, you can see we have one table change and 0 partition changes. If I go into the databases section, you see that I have a database in here. And if I click on that, I have a transform table in here. So if I click on the view table data, this is going to take me to Athena for the preview, and I'm going to select that. Okay, and in my Athena, there is no output location, so we need to select our output location. So I'm going to click on settings, and in here I'm going to manage and select the output location that we want to use. In our Ready Data Engineering, I'm going to create a new folder in there. I'm going to call it Athena scripts. I'm going to say Athena scripts or output, regardless of whatever it is you want to call it. And once that is done, I'm going to go back into my settings. I'm going to refresh and select Athena script. In here, select Athena script and choose. And I'm going to save that. We can go back into the editor, and we should be able to run our queries now. And if you look at the tables that we have in here, we have ID, title, score, and the other columns have been merged into a single column, and now we have a shorter and a more clear table. So if I select run this, and you can see what we have in the data. We have the title, the numbers, and the rest of the data in here. So this is how you can pull data from Reddit into your local system CSV, and also into your S3 bucket to be queried directly in Glue, in Athena. Now we're not going to be stopping here. We can run multiple queries against this. So let's say we want to run something like this. Maybe we want to run where ID equals to something like this, and you click on run. You can see the row is returned, and you have some nicely presented data. Now this is just one of the sections that I want to show you. Now we want to go into Redshift to see if we can also do the same thing on our data warehouse on Redshift. So I'm going to come in here and type Redshift. I'll click on Redshift. So if this is your first time using Amazon Redshift, Redshift is a data warehouse. It gives you 300 credits to be used on your first trial. So if you are new to data warehouse, this is a good resource to lay your hands on and get started with it. So by default, you might want to create a new work group. A work group is a collection of compute resources that has a single endpoint. Okay, so I'm going to have sample, I'll say Reddit work group. Okay, I'll say Reddit work group, and that's the base capacity 128. Maybe I'll just reduce this to 64. Using the same VPC, and I'm just click on next. It's going to ask me to create a new namespace. I'm going to have Reddit namespace, Reddit namespace, and the database name is going to be dev, and I am role. If you want to use this one, it's fine, but you can also create a new I am role. And I'm going to select any S3 bucket, create I am role by default. And this is the latest one. So this is the default one that was created. And this is the new one that I've created. So I can associate multiple I am roles, but I'm going to be selecting the latest one. This is the 1523 that has been created. And yeah, I'll just leave the rest as by default. No need for encryption. And by reviewing this, I can create. Right? So now it takes a few seconds to get the namespace ready for you to start using. So just let's wait for a little bit before we continue. And you can see we have a $300 out of 300, and the try expiration is this. So all right, now that the namespace and the configuration is done, we can now go into query data. So if you click on query data, it's going to launch the data warehouse section for the query editor, where we can start querying our data. So we have the Reddit work group and we have the default work group. I'm going to go into the Reddit work group, and it's going to ask me which type of authentication that I want to use. I'm going to select the federated user and create a connection. Now I have access to the AWS data catalog, which I already did. I already worked with while I was working with Glue the other time, if you can recall. And if you go in here, you can see the tables that have been imported. So we can either select this, and you can see the schema in here. You can either select this table and run query against this, and you will see your data. Or if you like, you might want to bring in fresh data from your CSV. It doesn't really matter which one you do. And if I go into the dev in the public section, I can do an import. So I want to show you, if you are not going through the route of Athena, the route of Glue to import data into your data catalog and the rest, you might want to use load data directly into your tables in here. So the way you are going to be doing this is you are going to see, once you are in the query editor, you can either click on load data in here, and it's going to ask you where you want to load the data from, whether you are loading from file in your local system or you are loading from S3 bucket. So let's say we want to select from S3 bucket. We're selecting from Reddit data engineering, and then in our transformed data, we want to select this particular file. If I select that, I select the file format as CSV, no compression, and I select on next. I click next, and it's asking me for the schema. I'm going to be using the public schema. So because no, I'm not loading an existing table, I'm loading a new table. So I'm selecting public schema, and the table name, I'm going to call it Reddit data engineer underscore engineering. And the IAM role that I'm going to be using is the latest one, this one. And you have all of this. So if you want to have a primary key, you can select this and select the primary key. And let's say the title should also be unique, and maybe the title also should not be null. And if you want to have any other data, you can also add that to it. But I'm going to leave it at that and select create table. Now the table is created successfully. Now let's load data into that. So the data is going to be loaded from Reddit data engineering from this CSV in here using this IAM row, format of CSV, the delimiter of this, quotes of this, and it's going to ignore header of with 1 because this is true. Ignore header is true, and it's going to be using this region. So this is how to load data directly into your catalog and if into your data warehouse. If I refresh this, you should see that in my dev public, and you can see the table that I just created, Reddit data underscore engineering. You can see it in here, and you can see the schema of that table in here. So if I right click on this and I select table, I will be able to run query against the table, and you will see that there's no difference between 3 connections has been reached. I think I should be able to run. Okay, I'm going to select this. I'm going to close this, and inside here, I'm going to just, comment this out and paste this in here and run. I'm using the same connection in here. So you can see the table is here, but the difference with this, I don't know if you notice, select star. If I comment this, you can see the difference is, if you look at the title in here, this is double quoted. You can see each of the columns are double quoted. Not all of them, but most of them. But this one, if I run this again, you see that the data is not double quoted, and the data is laid out pretty nicely. So you can also enable the chart. So in case you want to do some manipulations with the chart, if you want to use the line chart or the bar chart, for instance, you can see the data in here. And let's say you want to have your x-axis, play around with maybe the number of comments. You can also play around with maybe horizontal or vertical, and maybe you can also use something like the pie charts for, let's say, the number of comments. You can see the number of comments in there, and you can maybe have a title depending on what you want, just depending on your requirements and what you want specifically. You can manipulate and change the data with this, and this is how you can run basic queries with your Redshift, and run some manipulations with that. And there you have it, folks. Today we have been able to fetch data from Reddit into our local system, save it in a CSV format, and you can also save it in a variety of formats if you like. We have also been able to save this data on S3 buckets, manipulate and transform this data with Glue, and also we loaded this on Athena and as well as on Redshift. You can also take this further to connect to any visualization tool you want, whether you want to use something like Looker, Power BI, Tableau, or even QuickSight on Amazon. It doesn't really matter which endpoint you decide to use. So far you have a connection to the endpoint, it's quick and easy. And you can either connect to the Redshift, or you can either connect to Athena if you want, or the data catalog on AWS. So if you find this video useful, please click on the like and subscribe for wider reach so more people can watch this video and also learn alongside us. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.